The scar tissue on Dr. Whitney Park's hand had faded to a thin silver line, but she still felt it every time she picked up a suture kit. And that was exactly why she'd sworn off field runs for good, until the phone rang at 2 in the morning and the dispatcher said the words, "Multi-vehicle, Route 9, need a second surgeon on scene." She hadn't planned on seeing Caleb Hart again. Not like this, not kneeling across from him in the wreckage light of flares on wet asphalt, both of them working on the same trapped driver, shoulder to shoulder, breath fogging in the cold. "Clamp," she said. "Already got it," he answered, and passed it to her without looking up, the way you only could with someone you'd worked beside for years before everything went sideways between you. 3 years back, Caleb had been the fire captain who pulled her out of a burning transport van after a training exercise went wrong. Cracked ribs, a dislocated shoulder, and a fear of enclosed spaces she'd never admitted to anyone but him. She'd been the trauma surgeon who patched up half his crew after a warehouse collapse the following winter, staying past her shift, past sense, until he was the one telling her to go home. Somewhere in those overlapping call-outs, something had started between them that neither one had a name for, and neither one had acted on, because Cedar County Hospital had a policy. Surgeons didn't date first responders they worked calls with. Not because anyone official cared, but because Whitney had watched exactly that kind of entanglement end a career and a friendship in the same month, and she refused to be the next cautionary tale whispered in the break room. So she'd requested reassignment off his engine company's usual routes. He hadn't argued. That had almost hurt more than if he had. Now here they were again, the driver stabilized enough to move, the ambulance doors swinging shut on a stranger's second chance, while the two of them stood in the drizzle, not looking at each other on purpose. "You didn't have to come out for this one," Caleb said finally, wiping his hands on a rag that did nothing but move the blood around. "Dispatch has 3 trauma surgeons on call tonight." "I know." "So why?" Whitney looked at the flares burning low along the shoulder of the road, orange light guttering in puddles, and thought about how easy it would be to lie, and how tired she was of doing it. "Because they said your unit was first on scene," she said, "and I wanted to know you were okay before I let myself go back to sleep." Caleb went very still. In 3 years, she'd never said anything that plain to him. "Whitney." "Don't," she said, but softly, not a wall, more like a plea. "I know what I said. I know why I said it. I watched Dr. Alvarez lose his license and his fiancée in the same review board hearing because they couldn't separate the job from each other when it mattered, and I promised myself I wouldn't be a headline like that. But I'm so tired of pretending the rule is the only reason I stay away from you." Rain slid down the back of his collar. He didn't seem to notice. "It was never just the rule for me either," he admitted. "I requested the day shift last spring so I wouldn't have to see your car in the lot and want things I told myself I couldn't have. Pretty sure my captain thinks I hate mornings. I don't hate mornings. I hate wanting something I can't ask for." "Maybe you can ask," she said. "Maybe I'm asking first, since apparently we're both terrible at this." He almost laughed, the sound cracked in his throat instead, somewhere between relief and disbelief. "There are procedures for this, disclosure forms. I'd have to loop in my battalion chief, you'd have to talk to hospital admin, we'd both be off each other's direct rotations for a while, probably." "I know how paperwork works, Caleb." "I'm stalling," he admitted, "because I've wanted to do this for 3 years, and I don't want to get it wrong." "Do what?" He closed the distance instead of answering, slow enough that she could have stepped back, could have reminded him about the flares still burning and the ambulance pulling away, and every reason this was a bad idea at 2 in the morning on the side of a wet highway. She didn't step back. When his hand found her jaw, careful like she was something that had already been broken once and mattered too much to break again, she tilted into it instead, and the kiss that followed tasted like rain and adrenaline and 3 years of a question finally getting its answer. It didn't solve anything, not really. There would still be forms to file, schedules to untangle, a hospital board and a fire chief who'd both have opinions. But driving home separately an hour later, windshield wipers ticking against a sky finally clearing, Whitney found herself smiling at a red light for no reason